Good morning, everyone, and welcome to this COVIDSafe legal compliance webinar run by Kaizen Synergy Law Firm. My name is Nihal Samara. I'm the General Counsel and Legal Director here at Kaizen Synergy Law Firm, and I welcome you all to today's session. These sessions are short, sharp, succinct sessions that we are running specifically for Victorian-based agencies over the next 5 days. They will focus on key topics specifically related to either the lockdown specific legal updates that you need to be across for the day. We'll also be looking at specific quality, risk and compliance requirements for your agency, again focused on key areas that you should be looking at, particularly in the compliance, risk and quality space. With it, as always, we'd like to pay our respects to the elders past and present upon the lands on which we all meet. While this session is being run by webinar, we do pay our respects to the traditional owners accordingly. So as I mentioned, we are going to be holding short, sharp legal compliance webinars on key COVID-safe compliant topics starting this week. The idea is that your agency will be able to meet its legal compliance obligations, particularly focused on some of the legislative compliance areas. And as I mentioned, we're going to be covering risk management, WHS, HR, operational and governance areas. These are really open to Gemba admins that access the Gemba 360 dashboard. So I am actually going to jump very quickly into key areas around your dashboard and where to find things and what to use within it as well too. All of this information and the slides we will be circulating around pretty quickly today as well too, or each day as we finish the webinars. We will be looking at things like COVID marshals and the roles and all these other kinds of things over the next few days as well too. Just a summary of where we're currently at. Obviously, being in Victoria, there are again only 5 reasons to leave your home. They are for shopping and food, exercise, compassionate care, caregiving, and for medical reasons, authorized and essential work, and also to get vaccinated as well. Now, that said, there are a specific number of risk areas that we're going to be focusing on. We're going to be looking at work health and safety tomorrow. Some of these will build off some of the past webinars that we've also run as well too. And we'll be looking at work health and safety items tomorrow. One of the areas that really from a legal compliance point of view that we're going to be seeing is looking at daily attestation forms, working from home forms, obviously for staff that are already in lockdown and unconsidered part of your essential workforce, and also managing the core reasons to leave home as well too. As part of this, there are risk profiles that you should consider entering onto your risk register. And this also includes looking at travel permits as well too within your agency and some of the vaccination surveys that I will talk about as well. So let's just jump in and have a look at what we're focusing on today. Essentially, one of these is around the attestation registers. And I know we've got a few agencies joining us today that already use these. The attestation registers is something, just to cover off, something that the Department of Health and Human Services actually introduced in September last year. And with it, if we bring this up, this is a copy of the document that was actually circulated around from the department. I have just highlighted a couple of the key areas that I'm just going to focus on here today. We'll send this documentation around to everybody as well too. And it was something that was made effective back in September 2020. Agencies in the mental health space, migrant resource centre space, aged care, community health services, Aboriginal agencies, Aboriginal medical services have been using these forms. Now, what it is that essentially the attestation reinforces that workers and clinical placement students must not attend a provider's premises for work or placement whilst unwell, and it strengthens the message to remain at home if they have any signs of ill health. Now, the focus on this that I just want to draw your attention to that has been brought up with other agencies is that this is about focusing not just on COVID symptoms, but also more broadly if there are any signs of ill health. Essentially, the department has turned around and said, in terms of how long will the recommendation for a daily attestation be in place, essentially they're stated across this document, the recommendation for a daily attestation is a response to the current pandemic. It commenced on 4th of September 2020 and will be in place until further notice from the Department of Health and Human Services. So essentially it is around looking at focusing on work health and safety and ensuring a safe workplace itself. Essentially, they're thinking around this, which we've highlighted again, by considering staff members' own health each time they enter your agency. Workers or students can reflect on whether or not they are symptom-free in a method they might not have done in the past, and thereby helping to counter behavioural norms. So essentially this form, and I'll circulate this round, it also covers what if I refuse to complete the attestation and the likes of what you need to do. So essentially there are talks about occupational health and safety. Why I'm focusing on this today in our 15-minute session is because if we're essentially working through a lockdown process for your agency, it's important, especially if you are running daily health assessments, that you essentially meet your key reporting requirements within your specific group. And with it, the daily COVID daily assessment forms are listed here. It gives you the core information around what you need to be aware of. It also lists very clearly what is required for you within the state of Victoria as case and location outbreaks also rise and change. Essentially, people have got the public access to the direct COVID assessment site where they can review those and then continue on and complete their assessment. The other part that I will mention around this is also, once you've had a look at that and roll that out to staff, is to also look at your risk register. The risk register in this, when I click on this button, essentially we've put in two items specifically in here. One is around the staff attestation documents, and you can fill this out. This is your organizational risk register. It gives you the process to obviously have a look at key areas that you need to be mindful of. It gives you the details of what you need to complete and when as well across it. And the other part that we've also included here is around your staff vaccination registers too. The staff vaccination registers is also essentially what we've suggested to look at doing, and this is included in our PowerPoint slides, is to ensure that staff are completing what we call a staff vaccination survey. And within this, you'll see that we've got the details listed here. Essentially, what we've asked, what we've been recommending to agencies is to ask staff two very important questions. Those questions being, firstly, have you had the vaccine and do you intend to have the vaccine? Simple questions around it. So have they had the vaccine? It's a yes or no type question. And option two is, if no, do you intend to have the vaccine? And that's essentially what we're looking at doing is starting to look at managing and minimizing risks to your agency around this. So essentially your risk register is what we're focusing on at the moment around this. What this then gives you and leads into your staff survey is the capacity to then also, once you move forwards with this, what we will be bringing up is, if when we get to the next stage, is around vaccine registers in your HR module space. And this allows you to essentially go through and actually have staff either update their information, and you can see it here. And if we load this in, they can also load in their specific cards should we go down that path, which we will be exploring over the next few days. Or alternatively, they can also then set up their specific reminders as well too, under the vaccine registers for their reminders of the 8-week if they've had their jab for the first jab or the likes, and you start to collect this information. We will be exploring this a bit further over the next few days, but I just wanted to inform you that this is where we're starting to move. The other part that I will also mention is that as you're moving through things like your COVID daily assessment forms with staff, you are also looking at your risk registers. What you will find you have capacity on is to actually look at specific chart reports as well too within your agency. This is proving to be invaluable for a lot of agencies that have been doing these risk assessment type processes since February and March last year. This is just a couple that we've put on here just to demonstrate some of the risk assessment reporting graphs that you can start to pull out. These are types of things that are actually automated in your Gemba dashboard, and gives you the capacity to actually pull out daily reports and live reports in a graphical format for you to actually look at as well too. That said, those are the key areas that we really wanted to focus on today when looking at these sessions. It is around looking at your risk reporting. It is looking at your attestation document, starting to think of staff vaccine survey information, and also, as I mentioned, looking at your risk register. Those are the areas that we wanted to cover off today into lead up for this week's session. We will be covering off very specific items over the next weeks. We will be looking at joining the dots for workers and workplace activities that we will cover off. As I mentioned, these slides and recordings of the webinar will be made available later this morning to all attendees. If you do have any questions at all, by all means, please contact us on 1300 360 360, or you can email our support desk at support@gemba360.com.